Hello, hello, this is Joshua with The Sojourn. Today I'm going to be doing my first book review. The book that I've chosen today, it's actually a short story, is JRR Tolkien's book. Most people know Tolkien's work from Lord of the Rings, and that's certainly where he did his most prolific work. But he did a lot of other writing. And today I'm taking one of his short stories. You can find it in this book, The Tolkien Reader. It's probably been published in a number of other journals, but the name of the story that I wanted to talk about today is called Leaf by Niggle. Niggle, Leaf by Niggle. So this character Niggle, he's a painter. Not a well-known painter or too good of a painter, but he's a painter. And he's a man of small stature, and he's lives out in the countryside. And Niggle has a neighbor named Parrish who's always needing things, and Parrish has a bum leg and is always coming by and troubling Niggle for things. And Niggle's a kind-hearted guy, and he doesn't turn him down. But as a result, his paintings, they don't do too well. And Niggle wasn't a great painter to begin with, but he would just kind of focus on little things, and he liked to paint leaves. Well, this one particular leaf he begins to paint, and then it turns into something more, and it kind of becomes, then there's a branch, and then there are birds on the branch, and then it's this tree, and he has this image in mind of this grand tree, and before he knows it, his canvas has just extended, and he's got this huge idea that he wants to paint and that he wants to do. But as happens with a lot of us, life gets busy, things happen. He doesn't have that much time to work on this painting. And so even though all other paintings lose interest to him and he becomes really just engulfed with this idea of this tree that he wants to paint. He wants to paint this full tree, and in between the gaps in the leaves, you can see mountains off in the distance, and he knows there's this world beyond. But all he has time for is to go make a few sketches here, make a few changes there, and it never really materializes. Well, all the while, Niggle knows that he's going to have to go on a journey. You don't know what the journey is about, but Niggle knows he's going to have to go, and he doesn't particularly want to go. So as he's working, Parrish continues to come by. Parrish needs various things. I mentioned he's got a bum leg, and he needs help. And Niggle's garden doesn't get tended to that well, and other things kind of fall apart. And Niggle's just like all of us. He gets busy with life, and that thing, that tree that was his passion and the thing that he wanted to pour his time into got put on the back burner. Until one day, he has to go on his journey, and it wasn't the journey he wanted to take. And as you begin to read it, you realize this is allegory, and it's talking about death, that we're all headed that direction. It's a journey we're going to have to go through. Now, Tolkien was a follower of Jesus. He believed in the afterlife. And while the story is allegorical, he's not trying to make some grand theological statement on what the afterlife would look like. Rather, he's doing allegory, and Niggle goes on this journey. It's a train ride, and he goes off to a distant country. And without giving you all the details on it, Niggle arrives at a land, and as he's taking the path, he begins to think, this is familiar. A sense that he'd been there before, and then he comes upon it, and there is his tree. The tree that had been his mind, that vision that he had had. And oh my goodness, there it was in all of its glory, and he could just see it in everything. And yet, by the time that he had left Earth, before he had taken the journey, all he had been able to do was paint one leaf really well. He'd sketched little parts, he'd blotted out other areas, but really all of that work and what had been in his mind as this grand thing, the only real thing he'd been able to produce was a single leaf. But now in the afterlife, in the real country, if you will, Niggle begins to see the full tree, and then begins to see the garden around it, and begins to see the forest. There's not just a tree, there's a forest, and then he's able to explore the forest, and there's a lake in the forest, and on. This wonderful world that he had only had glimpses of begins to unfold, and he begins to see the reality of it and live it. And then the story cuts back to Earth and a few people who are still there that knew who Niggle was and his property. And they find this old canvas, and there's not much to it, you know. And finally, then years go by, and there's rain and there's a storm, and the only thing that really survives is this one corner edge that has a leaf, that one leaf that he had been able to produce. There's plenty that can be drawn from this story, but what I want to pull out is work and how we view work here this side of eternity. How do we view it? This is going to be a topic I'm going to talk a lot more on in the days to come. I'm going to do some whole segments on work that I've really been reflecting on. I think you're going to find helpful. But what I would say that we learn from this story about Niggle is that there is a frustration that we all can face. The things that we have potential to do, even the things that we see the vision, the long term of something grand and something big, but our human limitations, time, our capabilities, maybe it's technology, whatever it is, there are limitations this side of eternity that keep us from being able to recognize the full potential of some of those grand visions we have. And maybe at the end of our life, what will come to it is we've produced a single leaf, that we've been able to, move the ball forward an inch or so at a time, but not really been able to, make that much of a difference or make a dent into what we'd like to do. But it's this story that for me is both, there's a bit of sorrow and sadness in it, but also hope. The sadness comes from recognizing my own limitations and recognizing my own busyness in life. I told you it's a 20-page story. Here's the funny and ironic part of it. A 20-minute or 20-page story literally took me 4 or 5 sittings to read it because I would be interrupted. And it was so funny because in a microcosm of what Niggle is going through in life, where he's continually being interrupted by people coming over for tea, his neighbor needing him to attend to something, over and over, I was running into, I've got to go make dinner for the kids. Oh, the phone's ringing. Oh, I've got to go tend to whatever it might be. And so I found it was so ironic. It was both funny and also, a little painful to just go, wow, we as people live this. We live in this world of visions of things we want to do, bigger things. And yet the demands of life, the busyness, we think, if I could only just sit down and focus. Niggle would think, I could knock this painting out if I had, a few solid weeks to just do nothing else but really work on this. I could do great things. I think the same thing. If I could just sit down and plan for like 2 weeks, then I could get all my ducks in a row. But it doesn't work that way. There's all kinds of other responsibilities, things that have to be done. It's a great read. It's a short story. There's a lot more that can be taken of it. I'll probably make reference to Leaf by Niggle at other times when I'm here on the cast. But I just wanted to share that with you. Encourage you, if you like JRR Tolkien, if you like allegory, if you like his descriptive stories, go check it out. Leaf by Niggle. You can find it. JRR Tolkien Review. This is Joshua for The Sojourn. Hope you have a wonderful day.